there. Thank you so much for tuning in. So if you watched my last video, you already know Dr. Nicole. We are at Integrative Wellness. They're located in Belmar, New Jersey. And they have helped both Frank, my husband, and I with a few things. And I am going through IVF number 2. And they are, of course, on board with us. And I'm just so excited that they are sharing their expertise with us here. So first of all, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, if you're my subscriber, I'm gonna post a link down below. Go to their YouTube video. They're gonna be adding more and more, right? That's the plan for now on. Yes. To get more information. So make sure to follow their them on YouTube and also on Instagram. Their Instagram is awesome, has a lot of good information. And if you're watching this on their Instagram or YouTube, whatever, just follow me back. And today we're going to be talking specifically about infertility. My husband and I are going through IVF. Like I mentioned before, we already have a baby. He's gonna be 2. Sebastian through IVF, and I am literally in a week going for transfer for baby number 2. And the one thing that it's kind of crazy because we found out that we couldn't conceive after a good year of trying, if not more, and then it took another year for us to figure out what was wrong. So I actually went through so many tests and blood work, and I went to different doctors, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And then finally they were like, well, let's try the last piece of the puzzle, which would be Frank. And we found out that he has, how do you say it? Low motility? Low motility and low count. So at the end, I'm not saying whose fault, because whatever, it is what it is, and we are a couple and we are in this together. So I never looked into that way, but it was so exhausting, the whole process of trying to get pregnant and then trying to figure out why we're not getting pregnant, and then finally finding out that once we found out why we were so exhausted, we just decided to take literally like a year break, and we didn't even want to think about it or even talk about it. And the doctor said you need to go through IVF in order to conceive. So we kind of like, okay, this is it, and we just put it on a back burner. A year later we were ready, and we went through it, and with Sebastian. Now that being said, I'm gonna say something already. So that being said, I wish I know these guys before we did the IVF, because when you go to the doctors, they're gonna hopefully find out what's wrong, and they're gonna medicate or say like, here, that's what you can do. But looking back, maybe there was something that Frank could have taken, like in terms of just supplements, or maybe there was something that he was eating in a specific case could have, being a negative, like something not helping him, with his counts and stuff. And I mean, there's people that smoke, there are people that use drugs, there are people that do all those wrong things, and they're having babies like there's no tomorrow. But that's the thing, like that was not our case. So looking at our case, I'm not saying that you're not gonna have a baby if, I don't know, if you're having like 3 cans or gallons of beer every day. I'm not saying that, but maybe back then, if we switched things a little bit and looked, a little bit deeper, we could have fixed the problem without all the drugs and all the needles and all the stress and the hormone craziness that I need to go through, maybe for something that he could have been adjusted with him. I am going through this again because I already have embryos, but I have a lot of people that have reached out to me. They've been going through problems trying to conceive. So Dr. Nicole, because I passed the ball for her, she's going to kind of go over a few things that she's seen through her years of expertise, of experiences, that are usually like main reasons that both male and female cannot conceive. And before she starts, one more thing. I do not want to I'm not here to say bad things about doctors. We are not here to bash other people, what they are doing out there. It's just that we wanted to give another...
It's just information.
Just some more information and maybe other routes that you can go through. I'm so thankful for my doctors. I'm so thankful because I am a mom and I'm going to be a mom again. But things could have been maybe the problems could have been treated different way. And if you are like me that likes to exhaust your possibilities and options before you go to medication, these guys. Right.
Well, I think this is just really significant to go through this information because there are a lot of people that are dealing with similar scenarios. You know, I think that what you said before is really significant because there is a limited amount of information when you're going through all of the crazy testing. You know, you're going through and there's only limited testing that's being done, and it's all about levels and, you know, motility, sperm count, hormones, etc. And nobody's looking beyond that. And I think that that's what we really provide for our clients that are coming to us, that they've exhausted all the options, but also IVF didn't even work. Because that is happening too. And for you were able to go that route and it was able to give you your lovely little baby. But there are women that are going through IVF and that's still not working.
I actually know a few.
Yeah.
That have reached out to me and say, like, we did IVF 3 times, 5 times, and it didn't work for us. So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, because when you go through that type of scenario, and like you said, just with what you guys dealt with, you were exhausted. I'm sure mentally, emotionally, physically, you were exhausted. And there are so many women that they keep going because their goal is to obviously have this baby. There's some women that, like, since they were 5, they dreamt of having a family. That was not me, unfortunately. But with that being said, you know, first of all, I just want the viewers to understand that I don't want you to go to this place of feeling embarrassed, feeling shamed, and feeling guilty, because that's one of the most emotional pieces that I'm seeing when I'm working with these individuals, that they've tried to get pregnant, maybe they've tried IVF and it hasn't worked, and they really feel like, what is wrong with me? You know, why can my body not do what it's designed to do? And you need to take yourself out of that place, because there is something that's going on in your system that somebody just hasn't figured out yet. And that's kind of the premise of having this conversation on YouTube, is having men and women understand that there are other pieces of the puzzle that are not traditionally tested through fertility testing. And when we're looking at the person, we're looking at the big picture to understand, is there deficiencies? Is there foods that you're eating that are causing inflammation or stressing out your system? Are you under too much stress? Are you burning the candle at both ends? And I feel like living in New Jersey and, you know, being in the tri-state area, so many people say to me, and I am so guilty of this, of, yeah, I'm stressed, but I can handle it. And just because you can handle it and you're commuting to the city and you're working and you're a mom and you're running around and you're taking care of your husband and then you're taking care of family members, like, your body still perceives that as massive stress. Yeah. So just because you think you can handle it.
Multitasking.
Yeah, multitasking, yes. But your body still perceives that as stress. And one of the pieces there is that is actually creating a physiological change in your body. You're literally in a state of what they call fight or flight. So that's like the interesting thing about genetics, is despite how different we are from when we were like hunter-gatherers and cavemen, our genetics are actually still pretty similar. So when you have this high-paced lifestyle and you have a career and you have all of these crazy things going on and your body is go, 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 go on adrenaline, your body literally thinks that you are in a complete state of fight or flight, like literally fight the tiger or run. So one of the really interesting things about this is when you're in this sympathetic state, is what they call it, aka fight or flight, your body is preoccupied with survival, and it is not preoccupied with reproducing. So something as like simple as that is so important, Because if you want to get pregnant and you're relating to this, you're like, oh my gosh, like I work this high profile job and I barely sleep and I work 15-hour days and I rely on caffeine and I also am taking care of 1 million people in my family. You might not just need to pump the brakes a little bit. You might just need to slow down and learn how to relax. I asked a patient that yesterday. She's like, I just want to relax. I go, do you even know what it's like to feel relaxed? She goes, actually, I don't. So, and I know that I can relate to that too, because I've been so go, go, go my whole life. But, you know, part of me like thrives on it, but part of me also got really burnt out by it. And that's the thing, is you can survive that way for a long time, and then it just gets to a point that your body's like, nope, I can't do it anymore. And sometimes the red flag that goes up is you can't get pregnant. So,
and other things, can be any other things, but we are specifically talking about infertility here, but I guess it can be some other problems, right?
Yeah, you could just get really sick and just be like, oh my gosh.
You cannot figure out why you're not able to whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
Whatever. But it influences.
Yes, 100%. But one of the other big pieces of the puzzle too is immune system stress. You know, there are many people that come to me and they're like, how did you find all of these infections in my system? And how did you find all of these things going on? I haven't been sick in 10 years. And I find that so interesting, because my response back is, you've been low-grade sick for 10 years. And this is so common. Like, these people that are like low-grade sick, they're just tired, they're not sleeping great, they're never refreshed, they rely on coffee. If they didn't have coffee, they probably wouldn't be able to get through their day. They might not have a bowel movement if they didn't drink coffee too, because everybody uses coffee as their like laxative. So people that are like barely functioning on a day-to-day, but like just getting done what they have to get done, like, you're low-grade sick. And it's just your body is taxed out, it's stressed out, and you might be dealing with an accumulation of infections and even toxins. And I just want to like clarify this, because people are like, infections, like what does that even mean? So when you're dealing with infections, so first of all, we've all had sore throats, ear infections, we've all had a common cold, we've all had those kind of things. But what we don't understand is that when you get sick and then your body like fights it off and then you know, your symptoms are gone, sometimes those infections stay in your system. They linger. And then you get really stressed, or you work really hard for a week and you're like super burnt out, and then all of a sudden you feel like low-grade sick again. You're like, oh, my throat's kind of bothering me. Crap, am I getting sick? I don't have time to get sick. Never. So you can have these different infections that linger, and it takes this one catalyst that takes it over the edge for you to start having more problems. And with that being said, these infections can play such a significant role in fertility. And the reason being, and no moms, please don't freak out, you too. This is all new information you heard. So you will pass a good portion of the infections that reside in your tissues to your child. And that's just how the body works. Because you've heard of probiotics. Okay, so probiotics are all the good bacteria in the body. So the good bacteria from mom goes directly to baby, because that starts building their immune system. But if you have good bacteria mixed with bad bacteria, both of those go to the baby. It's not always a bad thing. But if you have infections in your system that are actually like harmful, then your body will say, nope, you're not getting pregnant until you clean this up. Mind blown?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the same exact thing goes for toxins. So I know that there's listeners from like all over the world right now, and I always used to joke like we live in the most toxic place living in New Jersey, New York, but honestly, it's everywhere now, unfortunately. Like, I used to live in Seattle and everything's so beautiful and green and the mountains and everything else. But unfortunately, you know, even if you like, there's actually a really cool website you can check out. It's called scorecard.org. And you can type in your zip code. It will actually tell you about the pollution in the air, in the soil, and in the water.
Oh my God.
And what's really interesting is I've been doing this about 7 years now. And when I go speak, I speak to a lot of physicians to kind of teach them about this integrative approach. And one of the things that I do is I go, what's your zip code? And I'll pull up their area. And one of my recent talks, like out even in New York, which I spoke there 3 years ago, and their air quality was pretty good because it was upstate New York. We typed it in, it was a couple of months ago, and their air quality went from like 25% polluted to 100% polluted.
Wow.
So who knows why, but it was just so eye-opening. Like there's something going on that is causing a lot more pollution to get into the water, getting into the air. And unfortunately, like our bodies really are resilient and they do such a great job at detoxing, but it gets to a point that our bodies and our filtration systems get a little like maxed out. So I always explain this analogy to my patients and it's very relatable. So like if you get a brand new vacuum and you use it every single day for a month, you never dump the filter, you just keep using it. It's gonna get to the point that in a month from now, your vacuum is still beautiful and brand new, but you can't use it until you dump the filter. So with that being said, this happens in our bodies and we call it aging. You ever, like, I don't know, I'm like in my 30s and when I like have a drink now compared to like when I had a drink when I was in college, you're just like, I can't function for 3 days. So, and we like say, oh my gosh, I'm getting old, but it's actually due to these filtration systems of our bodies being maxed. They're maxed out. So our bodies filter all through our lives. And then as we get older, the filtration systems get a little bit maxed. And then we hold more toxins than we used to. Yes, that can affect our brain. That can make us foggy. It can make our memory not as good. It can make us have low energy. But it can also affect your fertility as well. Yes. And again, not to freak anybody out, first child gets 80% of mom's toxins.
Wow.
I'm the firstborn, so I'm like, thanks, mom. And again,
and that's through the pregnancies getting the toxins?
It's through the amniotic fluid, which is the fluid that your baby sits in the placenta.
Okay.
Yes.
So even if you're pregnant, see, if you were able to conceive on your first try, it was not a struggle like we did, maybe you just want to rethink what you're using and where you're living and like your surroundings so you have a healthier pregnancy. And if you already had a baby like I did, maybe just get better for next time, which what I'm trying to do here.
Well, I think that one thing too is like this information is really significant if you've had a child that also is like struggling with certain things. Like there's a lot of women that are dealing with their kids that are super colic. They're like crying like crazy. Your child is crying because they're in pain. And it could be because their gastrointestinal system, who really knows, because it's like very like heart-wrenching because your baby can't speak. So when the children are colic, there's usually something going on, or they have like head to toe eczema, or they are having gastrointestinal issues already as an infant, or they're having tons of reflux. Like women, you know, this is your first baby and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to do everything perfect. And then you have all these issues and it's very, you know, surface level the way it's looked at. It's like, oh, it's baby acne. Ride it out, or, you know, let's change the formula. And even, you know, with the pediatricians, they're not looking deeper. And sometimes it's just the baby needs a little bit of support in order to get some of those systems working more optimally. So that's something important for the women that are moms that are just like, oh my gosh, my child really struggled as an infant and, you know, I never knew why. So there's so many things that you can do that are so simple that can help to balance these things out. So
now going back to infertility, what are the things for like both men and women that you have noticed more, like when it comes?
Well, men and women, it's similar and it's different. So like with what you described with your husband's situation with the low count and also the motility. So I personally didn't treat her husband. So if I was to look deeper, I would have known, like, was there a testosterone issue or were there other things that I was finding? So kind of speaking to the masses of generally what are some of the contributing factors with the low count and the low motility is a big part of it has to do with either toxins or mold, which I will elaborate further on, that can contribute to lowering the testosterone levels, which will affect the sperm count and the motility. So with mold, people are like, what does that even mean? Like, how do I get exposed to mold? You'd be surprised on how prevalent mold is, especially if you're someone who relates to like having a lot of respiratory issues, sinus issues, things like that. But for in an instance, like if I was working with her husband, at the time that they discovered that the low count was there, we may not have found that he was like living or exposed to mold at that current moment, but it could have been something that he was exposed to at a previous job or in his childhood home or, you know, a school that he went to. And what happens is if you're exposed to something on a regular basis, which if you're living or working in it, usually it's a daily exposure, that mold can get into the tissues, and mold can actually affect the part of your brain that controls your hormones.
Oh?
Yeah. So this is very significant for men if you're dealing with low testosterone or fertility issues, but it also is applicable to women as well. Okay. And I hate to say it now, but there are foods that are high in mold, and it's some of the favorites.
Tell us.
So, wine.
Okay.
Drink French wine, by the way. They monitor their crops for mold. Wine, coffee, cheese, and peanut butter.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Made that explain a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, like going back to our case, you know, because it was on Frank's side, but at the same time, for instance, like if we did figure out like maybe how to get his levels and his numbers up, I could have also done my job on my end and trying to get my body a little more prone to get pregnant too, you know, like do my part. So I feel like, of course, when you're having a baby, it's like both of you. So even if you find out where the problem is like one or other side, you're still supposed to be one and you're supposed to be working together. That's what I believe. So even if we were gonna, you know, if that was the case, we're gonna treat him and everything, I would have done the same on my end, you know, because I know there was a struggle on that end, but, you know, if I helped. So I feel like if you guys are interested, I'm sure you can contact them here. I don't know how you do in terms of, like, assisting people from, you know, not here. Yeah,
well, the thing is we can work with people virtually as well. We have actually a lot of ways that we could do testing based off of the DNA of hair, which sounds creepy and like hair doll-ish, but it actually works, I promise. But also too, for those of you that are listening and, you know, you're feeling like you've been struggling down this road and maybe there's lack of clarity or there's clarity, but you're trying to find another solution, you can easily hop on a 15-minute strategy call with one of our client services team, because then they get to learn a little bit more about your specific scenario. Exactly, because everybody's so different, and I think that's really, really important, is because nothing is just like the cookie cutter, here's the box for fertility, because every single scenario is so different. So as we would go through and do certain testing on an individual, you know, maybe with, you know, somebody with the low sperm count, maybe mold toxicity would have been part of the puzzle for them, but maybe another male, it would have been that they had toxin exposure, maybe they had mercury exposure because they only eat fish. Because yes, there is mercury in fish, for those of you that don't know. So it can vary person to person, and the approach is different person to person. So, and especially with females too, is the biggest things is there could be toxicity, there could be a boatload of stress, and sometimes it's just deficiencies. So one of the things that we just did today, we did your blood work.
Yeah, so I got here a little earlier because if you didn't watch like my last video, she did a pre-screening, right? And the one thing that she said at the end, she's like, I want to get your blood work done to get checked for, I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, different deficiencies. Because that's the thing is, some people, so when you take prenatals and you look at all the ingredients in your prenatals, like folate, B vitamins, iron, those are all the primary ingredients that are in your prenatals, and they're there because they are very, very huge for the development of the baby, but it's also very important for you to just maintain your body as you're giving all of your energy to your growing baby. But some women, just because of genetics or because of, you know, certain things in their health history, sometimes they're just super deficient in those things. And because folate, specifically, not folic acid, folate, plays a role in the development of the brain of the baby, then if you're bottomed out in your folate, your body will prevent you from getting pregnant. So it's sometimes as simple as that.
And that's something that you found out, right? That it was low.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm already taking folate. I picked up like the next day. So I'm taking that. But again, like, it is hard because it is what it is. We are where we are, and we are doing the IVF and stuff. But just like we're listening to her, and I'm sure if you're going through hard time, like getting pregnant, and I mean, again, like we're doing IVF, but I'm like, maybe if Frank, I don't know if he's gonna be happy about it, but maybe if it was the case, he gave up beer, wine, cheese, and I had more folate, and maybe we would get rid of, like, I don't know, things that we were using. If we were actually talking about that before we started the video, just like body products and body washes and stuff that can be toxic to you. Maybe like by those little things, we wouldn't need to go through all this very exhausting. I'm glad and I'm happy that I have doctors close by and they are amazing and it worked for us, but maybe I wouldn't have needed to go through IVF.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you never know.
You never know. You might need to go through that route, but even if you are going through that route, like now knowing more, I can at least do my part and make my body and, you know, the environment for this new baby that is about to hopefully stick in and come to this world. I can make at least the environment better for her.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a girl.
I was like, wait, what?
I already know it's going to be a girl. We did a DNA test. So next year we're going to have a girl. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can clean up the house, you know? So, yeah.
But I think that what your journey has been, the fact that you are providing this information to others and giving them more information and more of an option, that's, you know, really such a significant impact that you're making.
Thank you. And thanks for being here and explaining and sharing. So on that note, Dr. Nicole and I, before we did this video, we were like, we would like to answer any questions that might come up because I'm sure they will. And instead of having you answer her questions on her Instagram and then reaching out to me on my YouTube and then emailing us, instead of having questions and all your whatever reaching out to us like in all these different ways, there might be all over the place, and we're not gonna find it to get back to you, because that happens to me. Sometimes people reach out to me and I'm like, I remember reading the question but I have no idea where. So she's going to give me a link, and we're gonna post this link below both the description of my video on YouTube and her video on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So if you wanna ask us a question, I mean, you can ask whatever, we can try to quick respond, but if you want us to answer, because we're going to do a Q&A video after this, follow up. Just look at the doctor's appointment. So we are going to be doing another video answering all your questions. So if you do have a question, go to either our YouTube channels. So if you're watching this on Facebook, or if you're watching a clip of this on Instagram, go to our YouTube channels and click on the link on the description of the video. So you're gonna have the video and you're gonna have the description of the video. Click on that link that we're gonna post there. And it's gonna be a landing page. And we just wanna make sure that all of the questions and everything go to one spot. So we are being more efficient when it comes to help you guys out. I think that's it, right?
Yes.
Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. No, we're excited to answer any additional questions like Carolina said, so just submit them down at the link and then we will bring you lots of good information.
Yes. Oh, so man, like questions about infertility and all that we talked today, but if you have also requests for videos that you would like to know more about, also
let us know.
Use the link and let us know. Alright, thank you so much, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you.
And she is so sweet and she's so beautiful, and I said that she's like super fashionable. I'm just like, oh, I'm like that.
Thank you.
But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.